So if you don't allow more in, like we're here to stretch, we're here to say, okay, here is what I'm used to. If I want more of something that I don't have, then I have to grow into more than I've ever been before. It's like, oh, I want this thing I've never had before. Okay. Do you think that's going to be easy to get? Probably not, because I get, like, law of attraction says that you get what you believe, or you get what you think about, and you manifest where you are, not what you want. So in order for you to change what you're getting, you have to change yourself.
Welcome to Super Normalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ Barnaby, in the liminalist space to explore less charted realms of existence and to unravel the mysteries of life experience. Each episode, I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to regular people from across the world where they openly share their understanding and wisdom in service to others. If you're looking to upgrade your life, you've come to the right place. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll bring you great transforming conversations each week. My treasured viewers and listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized@proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual, what it really is, completely normal. Today on Super Normalized, we'll be covering the transformative journey led by JJ Flizanes. She talks about how she works with the core wounds of people, and she does so as in her method, which is sort of like empowerment strategies. She applies that method in her one-on-one and also group work, and it helps people to change, to move through health issues, relationship issues, success issues, and blocks to all of that. It's been a very deep talk, and she also goes into her use of plant medicines at the end, and how that actually helps people too. So it's a very interesting talk in that JJ sort of has a spiritual bent, but then grounds it really severely with her own sort of severely is probably a bit too harsh, but more like grounds it very in a structured sort of way that assist people to get past the woo, but also then reconnect to their bodies, their souls, and their life's way of being. So I enjoyed this talk, and I'm sure you will too. So on with the show. Welcome to Super Normalized, JJ Flizanes. JJ, basically you teach empowerment. That's the crux of it, from my understanding. And welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you, CJ. Yes, I teach people how to be happy.
Oh, okay. That's a different way to say it. I like that. And what drew you to this in the first place? I mean, that's quite a task, because some people have a lot of trouble getting happy.
Right. You think it'd be really easy because it sounds very simple, but it's very complicated sometimes, depending on, because we don't understand how the human brain works, or how our core wounds affect us, and law of attraction. And, there's just a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah.
And while I do many things, the bottom line is joy and happiness and freedom and empowerment. And so that's when I was asked by like an 80-year-old neighbor of mine, who I invited to the first block party ever, because I just moved here, and he was like, oh my God, he's like, so what do you do? And I thought, what am I going to tell this 80-year-old man? I'm not going to tell him empowerment strategist. I'm not going to tell him podcaster. I said, I teach people how to be happy. And he goes, oh, are you a therapist? I said, no, I'm a coach. And it's like, well, that's wonderful, because again, that is at the end of the day, the goal.
Yeah. Right. Beautiful, beautiful. So what sort of training did you get to put yourself in the position to actually help people find their happiness? I mean, that sounds like a bit of psychology involved in that, and maybe even mindfulness.
Yeah, I had to learn the hard way. that I'm a leader. And so what that means is while I learn from other people and study other modalities and study from people, I also came into this with sort of an old soul, intuitive, curious, astrologically supported, psychic at times, ability to understand human behavior. When I'm a Pisces with a lot of Sag, so I'm a truth seeker, but I'm a very feeling person, and so
Mm.
feelings have always been very important to me. Have always been what it's all about, and I didn't really know how to put my finger on that really to simplify it like I can now. But through just learning about myself, asking questions from when I was 8, like, why do I feel this way? Why did that person act that way? Why did that person react that way? I've always just asked the questions because I was curious, and most people couldn't answer my questions. So I had to search for the answers to my questions. And I went into acting, into musical theater space. And while I will not credit my degree from the college that I did graduate from as offering any monumental advice about life, I did take a semester and go to New York City at NYU at the Tisch School of Arts, did the film and television program. And this one teacher who was teaching Stella Adler technique. The Stella Adler technique comes from Stanislavski. There were 5 students under Stella Adler. Any actor knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, there's Lee Strasberg, there's Stella Adler, there's 3 others. Anyway, and Stella Adler's technique, what she took from Strasberg or Stanislavski, sorry, Strasberg is another one, was to live in the life of somebody. And when you decide to live a day in the life of somebody, because Lee Strasberg, on the other hand, believes that if you just get up and cry about your own stuff, that's doing the character justice. And I'm like, that doesn't feel right. The character is not me. This is not my life. So I learned how to live a day in the life of another character through a play that we were doing at the time. And I learned more about history, science, religion than I ever had in school through a play, because I had to study and understand it from a different point of view. And it wasn't my point of view. So that's kind of where I think everyone would benefit greatly from taking an acting class, because it will teach you how to look through someone else's eyes. Too often, part of the problem in my opinion, in life in general, is that everyone thinks everyone else interprets everything the same as they do. So if I look at something and I have a reaction, I assume everybody else is going to have the same reaction, and they're not. So until you understand what it's like to live in someone else's circumstance and look through their eyes, which are not yours, then it's hard to grasp why people don't act or respond the way you think they should. And so while acting gave me that, so did astrology. I started studying astrology probably as soon as I could read a newspaper, but I really started studying astrology at 21 because I started to notice patterns of people who wouldn't necessarily be friends or attracted to each other, but energetically had a pull. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I just started to notice similarities about different energy patterns between people, anyway. So I've been studying astrology forever. I actually have 2 courses on astrology, and I use it with all my clients and all my courses and everything that I do, because astrology gave me the reason why, oh, this is how someone else, not like you, looks at the world. I was like, oh, okay, I understand that. So I've studied these different things, and then fast forward, law of attraction came into my world in 2001, and that blew me away. So I've studied quantum physics, and then working with my clients, personal training clients, because I was a trainer. So actor, trainer, actor, into trainer, and then into business person, entrepreneur. And my clients, I just want to help people. I'm a good problem solver. If I don't know something, I'll go learn something else to solve the problem. And when people in a physical body kept having problems I couldn't solve, I kept learning more things. And when we got to pain, physical pain, that otherwise in a healthy, aligned, balanced, hormone balanced body, what other thing is causing pain? Well, emotions. So then, take that into quantum physics and epigenetics. And now I kind of have the whole package, and I'm working with people, and I'm just seeing the patterns, and I want to help people in greater ways. I was teaching law of attraction to my personal training clients. They didn't care. They were not interested in quantum physics. They thought I was cute. It was entertaining, but they weren't willing to make any changes. So I started my podcast to put myself out there in the world a little bit differently than I was being paid for. And honestly, I started my podcast to save my marriage. So I've gone through the life school of someone who, if you asked me if I ever thought I'd ever get divorced, I would swear on my life that that was never going to happen. My parents have been married for 54 years. There was no way I was getting divorced. And I did, but it took 10 years of me trying to learn to fix and not fix. I look at life as that when you attract the person you're supposed to be with, that's when the work starts, in my opinion.
Mm.
That's the person who's going to mirror back to you all of your stuff all the time and vice versa. That's the deep spiritual soul commitment, soul mate that you're
Yes.
looking for. And it isn't going to, in my opinion, it isn't going to be easy because it's not supposed to, because you didn't sign up for easy. You came into this physical body to learn something and to expand. So my marriage became my reason for learning what I learned, applying what I applied. And now I get to help save other people's marriages. Mine wasn't supposed to be, because our contract was up at 14 years and it's very clear. Doesn't mean it doesn't still, suck and it doesn't hurt. And it's not, sometimes still today, 6 years later, I'm not sad, even though I'm with the person I'm supposed to be with for the rest of my life. And I manifested that in 2 hours after letting go of the marriage, but because I did all my law of attraction work. So, I've just, again, it's a problem. I don't know how to solve it. I'm going to go learn something. I'm going to solve it. Oh my God, I did it. Then I share it. Someone else solves it. Okay, cool. Now what? Oh, new problem. Let me go learn something. New solution. Okay. And so that's been how I've done everything. I've even had coaches that I have hired that I said to them, should I go get a coaching certification? They said no. Even a therapist that I worked with for me, my last therapist, and she was the best one. The rest of them were terrible. She was the only good one, but she said to me, she kicked me out, first of all, because she's like, you don't need me, go away. But then when I would send her people, she'd say, tell me what the problem is. Tell me what the deal is. Like, she'd want my advice. And she literally ran a clinic full of therapists, and her mother created the ADD, ADHD way of testing. So, I've got some good accolades in terms of the people that have supported me and just said, you have a natural ability. Not to mention, again, there's sort of a little bit of a psychicness that comes into and an intuition that you can't learn. Well, you can, but you can't. It's not in a book. So there we have it.
Wow, that's a lot to cover. So, wow, it sounds like you've actually developed your own personal scientific method to solve spiritual crisis.
Yeah, I have an Aquarius Mercury. If that means anything to anybody. So I have vision. I have like longevity vision. So at 21, as a trainer, I was really, really focused on helping people. It's not a good business decision, but it was what I was really passionate about. I was focused on joint preservation. People come to a trainer, they want to lose weight. And I'm like, great, you're going to lose weight and I'm going to save your joints. So that way in 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, you're not crippled from pain from these stupid exercises that you're doing that are going to hurt your joints and wear down your brake pads. So, but again, who at 21 cares about joint integrity? Because I didn't have any pain, but I had tons of clients that had pain. And that was kind of a selling point, but I actually did care, and I wanted people to care about the long game. It's like investing with your money, right? You invest now, and depending on if you're conservative and or if you're a high risk investor, you're looking for, what am I doing now? And how, like, when do I want this to pan out for me? And when it comes to your body, if you treat it poorly, even if you're exercising, but you're abusive, you're not in balance, you're doing things with momentum, you're going to hurt yourself. Your joints are going to wear down and you're going to regret it, because I can see what's going to happen to you. So that point of view of looking ahead helps me make decisions now, helps me commit to now and say, well, let's help you understand what your choices now do for you later. And so that way you can make better choices now to improve your later.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just rolling back to your understanding of astrology and how that's important to you, do you actually still apply that with your working with clients as well?
All the time.
All the time. And do you work one-on-one with people? But I did see on your website you actually work in groups, but do you do one-on-one as well?
Right now, the only thing one-on-one that I do for someone who's not in a group. So yes, I have a membership, and that is a very small amount a month. And we have a group coaching call, and that's not a very high-end kind of deal. And then I've got 3, 6, 9, and 12-month programs. And within those programs, people get one-on-one sessions. They work with me one-on-one within those programs. The only thing I have right now, and it's new because I took it all away. I said, I won't work with people one-on-one anymore because I want you to be committed for 3, 6, 9, or 12 months.
Yeah.
Is my roadmap to emotional healing course, where I help you to uncover your core wounds and create your core wound map. So there's a package that includes the actual self-study course and 2 sessions with me. So that is it. Past that, you're doing something else. You're coming to a live event. You're going to do a 3, 6, 9, or 12-month program. That's all I do. There's no buying sessions. I don't do regular coaching like therapy. You can listen to the podcast. You can join Empower You, which is way cheaper to do that. And you can come and get very inexpensive coaching every month. But it's not a good use of my time when I'm dealing with people that, because I'm about efficiency too, right? And
Yeah,
so I
right.
provide so much information and so many programs that it's way more efficient to teach a group of people than the same thing to each individual person.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of healers come to in the end. Is like, well, like I can work one-on-one with one person, but I could work with a group and out of that group get a success rate of say at least 90%. So why not do a group?
Yeah. And in my groups, people still get one-on-ones. There's still a need to personalize, to spend the
Yeah.
time to do the techniques or do the focus that we need for each person. But I want the committed people. I don't want people who are just kind of testing the waters or,
Yeah. Yeah. And a part of your other service to others is actually you've written some books too to actually help people find their way on their own way.
Yeah, I have so much content. No one finding me anytime soon could catch up. So it's really about pick the lane of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
I've been doing this forever. And even someone who I was training years ago didn't realize how much video content I had on YouTube for exercise. I have a whole, literally my first 2 years almost of Fit to Love, I recorded 350 episodes, and half of those were video, and they were cooking videos and they were exercise videos because I wanted to sort of memorialize. That sounds like I'm retiring forever, but I wanted to archive the exercises that I was teaching people in the correct form, and so that way I could just tell you to go watch it, so I don't have to tell you how to do it, and then I could personalize the program for you. But I just want to get it out there, and I have tons of content's never an issue for me. Every day is the download of many, many things I could create or talk about. So it's been learning how to sit and trust and wait for when it's the right time, when there's divine timing for something to come forward.
Nice. Nice. How does your core wound mapping technique help individuals in their journey towards emotional healing and self-transformation?
Well, let me back up for a second and say where this all kind of came from. The core wound exercise, the original core wound exercise that I used, which was extremely life-changing, was from the imago therapy model. And that is Harville Hendricks and Kelly Hunt, who've been on my show a million times, and I've worked with them. And but prior to working with them, with my former relationship, we went to imago therapy and did some of the imago practices. And this was one of them. And even though he was a foot and a half out the door already, and he didn't even finish his exercise, this exercise was life-changing for me. And I remember saying to the therapist we were working with, because I was blown away, I said, why isn't every single person in therapy doing this exercise before they get to therapy? This
Right.
gives you a map. This tells you what you're working on. This shows you everything very quickly. And now we can actually get to work instead of spend time telling you the story about what happened with my mom, what happened with my dad, what happened with my brother. Like, oh my God, it's nauseating. And not to mention my ex, and I'm guessing many men, generally, not because I don't want to share or be vulnerable, don't like therapy because there's no structure. You don't just go in and talking, right? And you tell the same story. You're the victim of your own story. It's who upset you today. So we don't take responsibility. So I created, and that's never been my point of view. I created something called the Roadmap to Emotional Healing, and it uses this core wound exercise to extract the core wounds. And I started and I've created something called a core wound map. So if you think of it like, you're going to build a house, you buy a plot of land. What's the first thing you're going to do? Someone's going to come out. They have to survey the land. They have to see if there's, like the different levels of the soil in the ground, and if there's pipes underneath it, or if there's rock underneath it. They have to check out the space before. Maybe you did it before you bought the land, but when you're getting ready to build a house, you have to make plans, and you have to draw the plans, and then you're going to build the house. If you go to the doctor and you don't know what's wrong with you, they're going to run a series of tests. They're going to do your blood work. They're going to take some x-rays. They're going to try to find and uncover any abnormality that's going on so they know where to focus. Well, we're not doing that in therapy or coaching. So that's what the core wound map is. Let me go back into the core wounds, because your core wounds, so now let me explain what they are. I'm sure most of your audience with this topic of supernormalized have heard before, if not fully understand the difference between your subconscious and your conscious brain. There's anywhere between 5 and 12% of your conscious brain. That's the brain that's listening to this podcast. That's this brain that's saying, okay, I already know this, JJ, continue, keep going. It's the thoughts you can hear. But then there's 88 to 95% of your brain that's subconscious. So what's in there? Well, what's in there is when you were 0 to 7, your brain wasn't conscious. You weren't able to decide what to think or believe. Your brain was recording everything as a program to survive. So if your parents by accident left you crying for a couple minutes too long, you decided you were abandoned. You've been ignored. You're unsafe. And this is what happens in the brain to record so that it tries to survive. You get these programs downloaded like in a computer, like you get installed all these apps you didn't ask for, but because your brain's just doing it. And those core wounds, so that's what ends up being your core wound, is when something negative happens, whether it be that you didn't get what you wanted or you didn't feel safe, the brain decided something about yourself, and these become your core wounds, and they run your entire life for the rest of your life.
Ooh. So, okay. that's huge. Is that such an interest, like an easy sort of process to actually map that?
Yes.
It is.
It's easy, but it's intricate. Like there's an 8-page questionnaire, but then we extract the data into 3 different categories. In 3 different, I've created 3. So if you go buy, and anyone can buy Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendricks and Helen Kelly Hunt, Getting the Love That You Want, and you can do this core wound exercise, but you're not going to get a map, and you may not even know what to do with the information. What I do is extract the information and organize it in a way to show you 3 separate principles about how your core wounds influence you and how you can heal them.
Right.
Because the goal of imago therapy isn't individual growth, it's couple growth.
Okay.
So they're not looking at using this exercise to further an individual outside of a relationship, versus I saw it as, okay, well, you fix you first, and then you fix you, and then we'll come back together, we'll be better, and then we'll have better tools to help each other be with each other. That's how I think. So that's what I did. And that's what I do with other people. I think you have to take responsibility for your stuff first and stop and recognize that you're blaming somebody else for how you feel, or they're enacting something from your past or your childhood. Like there's mechanics and science behind all of it. And if we don't understand it, then you just believe what you think and what you feel. And you think, oh my God, I'm angry and it must be your fault. You angered me. You're bad. And we just make these judgments. We have no idea about the anatomy of emotion and how emotion even happens, because we're so afraid of feeling negative emotions that we run from it in any way possible. We overeat, we oversleep, we watch too much television, we're on our devices too much. We're never present in our body. We have disease, we have chronic pain, we do drugs, we drink too much, we eat too much, we shop too much, whatever. But these are all ways we avoid feeling. And most people have no idea how to process emotion.
So once you've grounded somebody with this technique, can you share any specific success stories of a client that experienced significant breakthrough through this guidance?
Sure. So I was running a 3-month beta program to test out my 6 months as a smaller package. And needless to say, the people who all run that group felt like they got what they needed and more, and they were very happy with it. However, I felt like I just data dumped too much. But one of the biggest ahas and breakthroughs of that program was there was a gentleman who was in the program who he was about ready to get divorced. And he had been in therapy, and he'd worked with one of my coaches, and that his coach, who is one of my coaches, referred him to me because she knew I was doing this program and he needed more and to be immersed. He listened to a couple of my podcasts and he was like hungry and he just needed more. So he got into the program, and one of his wounds was abandonment. And his abandonment was from his father. And he turned to drugs and alcohol pretty early on. I don't know if it was 18 or 19 or maybe even earlier, but for a lot of time in his life, he was very angry and very destructive, very abusive, got into a lot of trouble. And I forget how long before I met him, he became sober, but it was probably a couple of years. He'd been in the community of AA and Al-Anon and not drinking and abuse and stuff like that. So now but he still has these beliefs because no one's ever asked him about his core wounds. And he's in therapy. In fact, in all my programs, I use an app called Marco Polo. Do you know what that is?
No, never heard of it.
So Marco Polo is a video like messaging app. So you know how you text on a text chain?
Yeah,
This
right.
is, instead of sending text messages, you'd be sending videos.
Okay.
But it lives on the app, so you don't have to send big files to somebody else's phone, and you make groups. So whoever's in the group are the only people who can chat among in the thread, in the
Okay.
feed. So we do Marco Polo because that's part of the magic of all my groups. Because if you were to see a therapist or a coach or whatever, most likely you have your one-on-one sessions. But how many times do you get triggered in between your one-on-one sessions? And
Yeah,
and then
right.
you have to wait. And then by the time you get to the next session, like it's been diffused, you've moved on. And
Yeah.
so you actually don't deal with how to, in the moment, process any differently. So with this particular gentleman, he'd started the program with me. He went to his therapist, and they were talking about his anger about his dad. This was pretty early on in the program. And I was like, hold up. What do you mean anger about your dad? And so a couple of the tools that I used, I threw out to him, and I reinterpreted the situation, because his abandonment wound came from his love language was quality time. Well, his dad's love language wasn't quality time. His dad's love language was acts of service. And when he went back into generationally, and then his father's father, and then when we looked at the father's behavior, all of a sudden he reinterpreted that all his dad's not being there. Like, he could now see that all the acts of service that his dad did to provide for him and his mom and his family, all of a sudden he went from 35 to 40 years of anger and pain to love instantly. And now when he thought about his dad, instead of being angry and feeling a pit in his heart, he would cry, because he'd be like, oh my God, I feel my dad's love for me. For the first time in my entire life, I feel my father's love for me, because he understood how to feel, what to look for.
Yeah.
But again, that, like I said in the beginning, most of us think that because I want this and you react this way, that you know how I'm interpreting this, and I think you're right. Like, we have this unspoken assumption that what I believe to be true is actually true. And I'm here to say, no, it's mostly false. It's a story you've made up in your head, and it's your point of view, but it isn't the truth. It's a version.
That's right. I think we actually all live in a bit of a reality tunnel when it comes to that, and we expect everyone to experience the world the same way we do. And unfortunately, that's not exactly right. So
Not even close.
not even close. Yeah. 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 So you didn't actually mention before that intuition plays a large part in your work. How does that play out for you? I mean, when you have intuitive ideas, are you actually given messages or like visions? I mean, how does that play for you?
Yeah, I've been doing live events with my podcast community since 2018. And I had a friend who's a healer, and she's psychic and intuitive and clairvoyant, all the clairs. And sort of being around her, what I started to notice about myself is that I would say the same things, think the same things, not in the vision way, or some messages that she might hear from someone who's no longer physically focused, but a lot of the advice was the same. Or I would just notice that there's a certain inflow that I would be, and I would just say stuff. And I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but and it would be right, and it would be good, and it would be powerful, and everyone would be like, whoa, like I would just, and I didn't even put a word to it until years later, someone said, you channel. And I went, what? I don't channel. Like, I don't channel dead people. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not channeling a person, but I channel. But I think we all can channel.
Yeah, I think
And I also think we all can. So I was going to work with an animal communicator who was a psychic, and we were going to do a program. And I realized the universe did not want me to do it with her. She was kind of low vibe energy. But then I realized I don't need to. I have increased my intuition. So I have a strengthening intuition course that I created, because basically, if you understand how the brain works, it works similarly to your muscles. And I've studied and been doing muscle work forever in terms of innervation of new muscle fibers and new motor patterns. Well, a motor pattern is the same as neuroplasticity and building new neural pathways. It's the same as a motor pattern. So it just became this parallel of all the things I've done in the body, parallel with how to rewire your brain, how to create more awareness, how to, if you're a left brain person, how to open up the right brain so that you can receive your downloads, your messages. And it's going to be different for everybody. And I've had a couple instances of clairvoyance. I've had a couple instances of clairaudience, but I'm none of them. I'm whatever. I think I'm clairsentient, but to a degree, but I think we all are. I think I get into a pattern, a rhythm, especially when I'm moving my body, and I'll just get downloads and ideas. I'll just know something. And again, not all the time, but I've strengthened it over time because I've allowed myself to stretch into this. I would have thought, and I've had psychics tell me, especially people on my show, oh, well, you can't do this. This is my gift. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I didn't say, can I do this? But I'd say, how did you know when you were gifted? And finally, one psychic said to me, how do you know that you're not? And I was like, tell me more. So
yeah, it's interesting. Some people like to think they're more special than others, but I think we all actually have these skills. And in time, I think it's actually becoming more normalized that we can tune into these abilities and accept them as a part of what is actually normal reality. So all power to you with that. So what are
actually, can I share real quick?
Yeah, go.
Actually, today I had a 15-minute strategy call with someone who saw me on a webinar yesterday. And I'm telling you, the man, he came on and my brain said he's a Pisces. And I just thought, okay, just not, this is a 15-minute strategy call. This is not a coaching session. He doesn't sound like he's interested in buying anything. He wants you to coach him for free. Just listen, whatever. We get to the place, and somewhere when he tells me all the things and he asks me my opinion about something, and I said, what's your birthday? And he says February 24th. And I was like, I just should have said it. I just should have said it. That's Pisces. I'm like, my brain said you're a Pisces and I didn't listen. Like literally, that's where intuition comes in. It's like it's this instant thought, but we're not taught to trust that. And so my brain started to make up something and said, well, but it could be a this, and you don't know that. You don't know what he like. I just started to doubt myself and I didn't say anything. But it even happened today when if I just would have went with the first impulse, it was right. Now I only have 12 choices here, of course, but but I wasn't trying. I just kind of knew. Anyway.
Yeah. That's how intuition often works for people, but we sort of just discount it because we don't want to actually sometimes accept the information that's popping in.
Definitely.
In your experience, what are some common patterns or beliefs that tend to hold people back from manifesting the success in health and life that they desire?
Well, this goes back to a combination of core wounds and upper limits.
Okay.
So if you don't, because of like the evolution of my work in this, I'm to the point where I do not think like if I'm going to be a broken record, what do you think is the best place to start? Understand your core wounds, because they're going to tell you every step of the way when you're being confronted with that. Like even in my membership, I've got a member, she's been a member for a long time, and she is a mental health practitioner. And on the coaching session, she was talking about her child. And again, everyone gets enthralled with the stories. And I'm like, it's not about the stories. Like, we can simplify this down to a simple exercise that I teach. It's the feelings and needs. It's from Nonviolent Communication and Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And it's a 3-step process. What am I feeling? What need is not being met? What strategies can I take to get the need met? Everyone's learned this from me in my group. I talk about it on the show, yet nobody uses it because it's too simple, but it gets to the point and it gets the job done. And we're all like, the story and about the pain and the details of this. I'm like, put the story aside. Listen for what the need is, because it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, purple, red, yellow, a Martian. What is the feeling? What is the need? And what is the strategy to get the need met? End of story. That's it. That's all you need to do. If there was one thing to teach. Now, I teach that first and foremost, but then the next thing is your core wounds. And if you don't understand that you're only as good as your perception of yourself. So if you don't allow more in, like we're here to stretch, we're here to say, okay, here is what I'm used to. If I want more of something that I don't have, then I have to grow into more than I've ever been before. It's like, oh, I want this thing I've never had before. Okay. Do you think that's going to be easy to get? Probably not, because I get, like, law of attraction says that you get what you believe or you get what you think about, and you manifest where you are, not what you want. So in order for you to change what you're getting, you have to change yourself.
How has your teaching of the law of attraction impacted the lives of those people that you work with?
Well, the people that, I just got a big long email today about, I'm currently running a 14-day manifestation challenge. I run them a couple times a year. We're literally on day 13. Tomorrow's day 14 and it's done. But somebody who used to be in my community years ago when I started this, who was very, very active, and then he disappeared, and he came back for this one. And he was like, I'm back. And I said, welcome back, Charlie. And he wrote this big, long, like, he said, okay, confession time. And he went on to basically, and Charlie might have been in my membership for maybe a couple of months. But Charlie otherwise has never had a one-on-one session with me, has never purchased a course, has never been to a live event. I've never met him. I've never worked with him. But he goes on to credit me and for teaching him law of attraction and for all the things he's been able to manifest over the years, and how his path took him one way and away from me. And now he's back and he understands, because I said he was upper limiting, and he's like, no, you're wrong. And then he went, okay, no, she was right. So, coming back to, I've had emails from people who've changed their entire lives just from listening to my show. It's free, so it happens often. And there's lots of different testimonials, I guess. That was the most recent one because it was today. And then I've manifested, a marriage, and then my soulmate after that, my house, my job. I mean, what I'm doing right now, I've made it up. I've made it up. I am an empowerment strategist. I've created a core wound map. I've created so many things that came out of my own, out of nothing. I didn't look to be validated by anybody else about it. It just kind of came. So that is part of the law of attraction belief of stretching yourself into and allowing in more and living as if it's happening.
As a part of what you were just describing, you described upper limits as well. Can you go into that at all? Because that's curious.
That's based on the work from Gay Hendricks. No, not related to Harville Hendricks, and spelled differently. Gay Hendricks wrote a book called The Big Leap. Definitely would recommend it. However, I will tell you that when you read it, you'll read it and you'll maybe get something out of it the first time. It usually takes about 2 times, and I work with people. I've created a whole document and worksheet that goes along with it for people that work with me. So no, I'm not sending it to everybody. It's because it's in a process, and it goes with law of attraction for me. Because if you understand quantum physics and law of attraction, you think, oh, I just have to be in a high frequency to receive that which I want. So if that was just the easiest pie, why can't I get everything that I want? Because we upper limit, because we have a certain amount of success, joy, love, and abundance we think we deserve. And until you expand that, you can't get more. So to me, it's where, and Gay Hendricks will never admit that this has anything to do with law of attraction. He'll never use those words. Really, I've never heard him, and I've interviewed him many times, and he's my neighbor. He lives down the block. So, when you put those two things together, to me, that was a great marriage to make sense of why someone is being high vibe or, doing or feeling positive. And again, law of attraction is so much more intricate than that. Most people don't understand how it works mechanically. And so that's why they get disappointed and feel frustrated that they can't get what they want. But this upper limit piece is, how do I allow in more? So many people are terrible receivers. I mean, one of my clients, I can't wait that's my next program. I think I'm going to make another program. I thought about that today. I think my next program is going to be learn how to receive. Like, we're going to do a course on receiving, because when I offered something, someone just says no. And I'm like, no, you say yes. Oh, but I don't want to overimpose. You're not. I'm asking. Learn to say yes. Trust that if I didn't want to give it to you, I wouldn't ask. So I think it's a good you could, good thing. So out of the, so far I've mentioned the Imago Therapy book, or Imago Therapy, and Getting Love That You Want, and then The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. But these are tools that I use in all the things that I do as well, because you have to.
Yeah.
If you want to be effective.
Yeah. Not everyone actually needs exactly the same pattern. So to take pieces from each actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah. Wow. Cool. So what sets your approach apart in guiding conscious truth seekers towards removing emotional blocks and embracing the empowerment in their lives?
Well, a lot of what we just talked about, and something that, when you look at the brain and how we have been built by these programs, we've had these programs installed. We didn't choose it in this physical body. I do believe we chose it energetically before we came in, but we don't like them, and we're not supposed to. We're supposed to work through them. But then we're called to take action on that. And for some people, like I think before we started to record, you and I talked about another subject that I don't talk about that often. I do on my show a little bit, and I do with my clients. And in fact, I have 2 plant medicine journeys happening this week. Someone's coming in on Monday for hers on Tuesday. And then next week she stays because of my mastermind's coming. And then someone from Canada is staying extra days so she can do her journey. And then I had another client here a month ago doing her journey. So I am someone who, growing up, was not a recreational drug user at all. In fact, I didn't even touch pot until I was I was like 25. Yeah, 25, 26 years old. And And even when I did it, I didn't do it for the right reasons. And I had a bad experience. And I went to Jamaica and then I had a good experience. And I only maybe literally 4 times, maybe 5 in my entire life have I smoked pot or been around anything. And it was after, again, I was an adult living on my own, had a business, because I just never thought, the Sag part of me thought, well, why am I going to take a drug? Why don't I just learn whatever I need to learn that the drug does for me? Why can't I just do that? So I've been pretty much against all drugs in most ways, with, of course, the exception of alcohol. I even have a wine label, by the way. It's called high vibrational wines. But so, because I want to put more frequency, how can I make the wine a little better? I increase its frequency, but that's a whole nother story. Highvibrationalwines.com if you're interested. But with working with cancer doctors and cancer patients and learning about the brain and studying core wounds and studying patterns and working with cancer patients, terminally ill cancer patients, and taking all this energetic work into play, I realized that psychedelics had the opportunity to rewire the brain more easily in a much more powerful way in a very short period of time. And so I've been studying and using and working with psychedelics for 3 years now, and learning and I kind of have it dialed into what I'm comfortable with. I not only do it with people that are in my programs, but it's something that can help us open up channels that otherwise aren't available to us. But again, it's very important that that's not where it stops. It can't be that I'm having an experience, regardless of what happened in the experience, and then I go, okay, that was nice, or maybe a little bit has changed. I have people do work before before this journey, during it, and then definitely after, because whatever you are shown teaches you what you need to change about your life. So it isn't to me, it's a portal into the next version of who you're going to be. And it's helping you to decide and discover what needs to change.
Right, right. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you then. So, what plant medicines do you use?
Like, I use psilocybin.
Yep.
From the Malabar mushroom. And I just started literally like last week, and it will be for this coming Tuesday, with MDMA. I watched the How to Change Your Mind with Michael Pollan as a starting point to sort of get like familiar with. And again, intuitively, I just decided like, what was I interested in? And when I watched the LSD, I thought, okay, yeah, sure, I would try that. When I watched psilocybin, of course, because I also have cancer doctors that I have worked with that use it, that take people on journeys or send them to different retreat locations or whatever. And that's kind of where I got hooked up with it. So that was always a yes. MDMA was a no. I knew people that do it all the time, and it didn't call to me. And I also didn't see a lot of change in them. So I didn't have a lot of respect. And then peyote was a yes, but I will wait to be invited. And wouldn't you know it, at a Bruce Lipton event in Sedona, Arizona, a year and a half ago, sat next to a shaman who does peyote and what's the other drug? The San Pedro. So it's not peyote, but San Pedro, which is a less powerful, potent version of it. So I liked the San Pedro. I would probably do it again just for reference to see what happened between the first and the second time. But psilocybin is 100% my medicine. It is the like surrender, become one with the earth, transport to another world, let it take you where, like, you might go in thinking, I'm going to work on my mother wound. Yeah, good luck. It's going to take you wherever you need to go. Like you have zero input.
All right, look, the reason why I'm laughing about that is because I know exactly what you mean. It's like when you start, you might have all the best of intentions, but the spirits know what you need the most.
Yeah, I went in, I had done, it was probably if I count one, two, I don't know, like my 4th journey. I did 3 grams. And what I have is extracted psilocybin. So it's actually 3 grams. But if you do 3 grams of the actual mushroom, you have the plant material. So it's actually not 3 grams of psilocybin. It's 3 grams of mushrooms, but it's going to be less than 3 grams of psilocybin. So what I have is an extraction. So it's 3 grams of psilocybin. And I did the 3, and my heart kind of opened, and I had some unresolved grief and sadness about my mom, and my mother's alive. In fact, she's coming in like a week and a half. Yay, finally. I've lived here 3 years and she hasn't visited me, and it's a big pain point for me. It's a big pain point. Like during that journey, I'm crying and texting her, and I'm like, please come visit. So I'm having but did this 3 grams thing because I had a client coming and I was going to give her 3. So I needed to experience it. And I felt like, oh, that wasn't enough. Like I want to go back in, like that's not done yet. So then I do 4.5 thinking I'm going to go back into the mother wound and oh, no. Portaled over. I was on the other side seeing my cousin who died 20 years ago. I was like, oh, okay. We did not go where I thought we were going to go. And that was where I was like, okay, that's the joke. The joke is you think you're going to go, like you have an intention. And that's different than San Pedro, because when I did my San Pedro, that's very intentional. I asked grandfather. So the shamans call San Pedro grandfather. I said, grandfather, show me my divine, what was it? My, like my destiny or my greatest use of my life, basically. And there was a different phrase anyway. And that's exactly what I got shown. But you have to be intentional, because San Pedro is very different than psilocybin. So anyway, I love psilocybin because I love the surrender piece. I love the surrender piece that you don't know where you're going. Goodbye. Give up and let go, because you're just going to be shown what's going on. And I think it's cool. Even when it's bad, it's cool because it's stuff you don't want to deal with, and it's stuff we need to talk about and you need to see and you need to change.
Yeah, my prior experiences of it, it's it really feels like, it's not like you take something and you're altered. It's more like you were invited to it, and it was totally aware that you were going to take it. And when you're in it, it's like a leading hand. It actually takes you on a journey. It really does take you on a journey, and it's super conscious. And it's like that's the weird part of it. It's like, oh, I haven't just taken something. This is like interacting with a being which is way beyond me.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And what I know from some of the people I've interviewed, and I don't, again, I'm not the first 2 people that I worked with on my first journey. No, it wasn't my first journey, but it's supposed to be my biggest journey. That's a whole nother story. But they travel the world, and they have teachers in all different countries with all different kind of plant medicines and everything. And so the mushroom that I used there was the something with a C. It's like the most common one. Anyway, when I had already had experience with the Malabar, the extraction. And so my 2 grams of my extraction was so more powerful than MDMA plus 2.5 grams of whatever they gave me, which was in the mushroom form. And I was actually like pissed, because I'm like, wait a minute, nothing's really happening. And I said, what's the difference? It was a great education, because I started to learn how the different mushrooms act differently. And some mushrooms that are out there will be very visually psychedelic. Like, yes, all of them will change your brain. So that way, when your eyes are open, your reality will shift a little bit in some way, whether it be fractioned or, you'll see things differently. But there are some mushrooms that will literally be more about what you see when your eyes are open. And the one I'm using is all about going inward. It's all about that depth work, which is what you're talking about. I want to be clear to anyone who's listening to this, who hasn't tried different kinds or hasn't done it at all. Be clear that when you're searching it out, that you're searching for what you want, because I don't want to have my eyes open. I don't want to see shapes, and that's not what I'm about. I use this to help people break through into a heart space, into patterns, into allowing the right brain and their emotional body to finally be online in order to have an emotional breakthrough. And that's an inward journey, not an outward journey.
When you're holding the space for somebody that you're taking on a journey, do you still use a lot of the core techniques that you've been describing before?
One of my assistants actually came out in November of last year, and she's been to a couple of events, but she hasn't done all my programs, and she's never been in like a really deep dive program that I do. So, but I did give her, as a package deal with her journey, because she's paying for it. I gave her access to the program, and I told her to do her core wound exercise. So she brought the core wound exercise, and while I gave it the medicine, in the about 60 minutes it took to start feeling something, we did her core wound map. So we problem solved some of the beliefs that she came in with, and sort of became clear as to some of the habits and patterns and realizations that she hadn't thought about before. So yes, we did her map during that time. And then after she came out, we'd already figured out like all the things afterwards that she was going to implement in her life to make changes. And on a scale of 1 to 10, she said her anxiety level was 12 before we started, and it was a 2 when we were done. And 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, it was a 4. So, but both things were important. It was understanding her core wounds, understanding her patterns and behaviors, and problem solving them, along with for her, she didn't even have a psychedelic experience. Like really, she was just connected. It made me go, holy cow, I've never seen it. And I gave her a horse load. Like it made me realize that she was so out of her body, her spirit, her physic, her energy source, so outside of her body, only in her head, totally disconnected to her body. So for her, at one point I thought she was sleeping. I'm like, oh my God, is she sleeping? And she was being the waves. Like I had the music on and she was just part of the music. And she was the best meditation she's ever had, but it also just connected her body. And sometimes that's as simple as it can be for people. Now, does everyone need to take that in order to connect your body? No. But for her, it was like a super connection. It was like super turn on her body to her brain and bring her spirit back into her body. So, yeah, everybody does some kind of work as we're sort of there. I do a ceremonial thing. So we all open up to all the directions, like we pull a card, there's crystals, there's clearing. It's all very ceremonial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, do you do any protection work beforehand as well? Because
Yeah,
we know there are spirits out there, and not all of them are friendly. So it's good to actually have those boundaries set before you start. So yeah, you definitely do that.
definitely do that. For the individual, and actually what has been talked about more recently, I'm putting it out into the world. I have no idea how, when, or what. But people ask me like, what's next for you? And I keep saying, oh, I want to have a retreat center because I want to be able to do it in a larger group with still people having separate rooms and having more than one facilitator, because I'm a one-to-one on the facilitation. And while I don't necessarily think I need to be as seriously like on top of them as I am, like in the space, I could probably handle two people at the same time in different rooms. I don't want people I want them separated. I want them with their own music. I want them in their own space. I don't want anyone to influence anybody else's journey. And yeah, and I want everyone to be protected and everyone to feel free, to feel supported. So at some point in time, I'm going to have myself, I don't know how, I don't know when, a retreat center.
Do you think that retreat center will be in where you live now, or will you move to somewhere else?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I live in Ojai, California. I'm between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, and Ojai itself is a retreat place. It's a very strong vortex. We're like the Sedona of California.
nice.
It
Very
needs to
cool.
be here.
Yeah, right. So we're coming towards the end of the podcast now. I wanted to ask you, is there any questions that you think I should have asked that I didn't ask? Or anything I didn't cover?
This is your show. So I always appreciate when you just ask what you want to know, because I know from firsthand experience that when you care about what we're talking about, your listeners will care what we're talking about. And if you don't
Yeah.
care, then they're going to check out.
Well, the reason why I ask that is because sometimes I get so much information that I might have forgotten something that has been peeking in your mind that I could have asked. But yeah,
Nope.
obviously.
I added the psychedelic piece. So, because I wanted to get there.
Thank
Because
you
I
very
don't get to
much.
talk about it that often. I mean, on my own show, but I rarely talk about it.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And so, JJ, how can people find you and learn more about your services and enjoy your podcast and your books?
jjflizanes.com, jjflizanes.com. Everything is there. There are some free classes on the homepage. 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. It's a free 90-minute presentation that you can watch on demand. All my social media links are there. All my podcasts are there. There's more classes. Anyway, all the stuff is there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, JJ, for coming on the show. And I appreciate your time and the sharing that you've given to us as listeners.
Thank you, CJ. I appreciate our conversation. It was fun.
Excellent. All right. I'll just say goodbye to listeners. It was a great talk with JJ. I appreciate her sharing around her understanding of her work and the way that she sort of takes a structured approach to helping people work through their core wound healing, and her revealing of her understanding of psychedelics and their processes in her work as well is fascinating. And although it doesn't sound like it's her core work, but she does seem like she wants to move towards having a retreat sort of space that will assist many others at the same time. If you've enjoyed today's show, please reach out to JJ at the website that was mentioned. And if you have forgotten what that is, you can look into the show notes on your podcast app. Otherwise, if you're on YouTube, you can look at the notes just below that. And if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And yeah, until next episode, it's bye for now.